Hey guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial where we are building this CMS application using ASP.NET Core 3 and Angular 10. In the last video tutorial, we implemented routes in our application. I showed you how to create and use routes in your application, how to display the components accordingly when a route is specified in the path of your browser. And here I have also shown you how to lazy load the user profile using the user profile routing module. In this video tutorial, let's start working on the other components. Let's start working from the navigation bar. If I go to the finished project, here if you notice that we have a navigation bar. And when I try to collapse this particular window or try to reduce it or shrink it, you see that the navigation bar turns into a drop down. Obviously, some of you must have known that I'm using a certain framework that is responsive to the size of the browser window. So I have also mentioned here that I'm using Bootstrap. So we would need to install certain libraries so that we can start working on the UI. Once again, I'm going to inform you guys that I'm not going to show you how to build the home page. I will provide the code in the DevOps repo so you will have access to it. Creating the home page is not within the scope of this CMS application tutorial. You can create and display whatever you want to whatever you want to show on the home page. So the home page that I have over here is basically telling you what technologies I have used and the link to the video tutorials, which I will update once the video tutorial series has been completed. Now I go back to the navigation bar. To create the navigation bar, first thing I need to install is certain libraries so that we can make use of Bootstrap 4. If you're not familiar with Bootstrap 4, I recommend you to go to the official website, which is getbootstrap.com, and learn about Bootstrap framework. I am not going to teach you how to build or how to use Bootstrap while building your application. This course doesn't cover Bootstrap, this course doesn't cover jQuery, this course doesn't cover CSS styling or HTML. All you have to do is take up the basic course before you start watching this video tutorial series. In this video tutorial series, we will be only focusing on building a project, not teaching you guys different technologies like what is Bootstrap, what is HTML, what is CSS. Also, now let's focus more on the project itself. So we want to build this navigation bar. Let's go ahead and install Bootstrap in our application. So to install Bootstrap, we would need to open the terminal window. So let's right click on the client app and open the client app in a terminal window. Once the terminal window is open, let's run the commands to install Bootstrap. To install Bootstrap, we will be using npm. Since npm is the package manager that we are using to install required packages in our Angular application. Here in the client app, you will have a file called as package.json. In this file, you will see the list of packages that you install in your application. Right now, we don't have any dependencies related to Bootstrap. So to install Bootstrap, we will go ahead and run the following command. If you need more information on the commands, you can go to getbootstrap.com and then go to documentation. Under documentation, you will go to the option download. And here, if you scroll down, you will see how to install Bootstrap using npm. And here is the command that we need to run. So we'll copy this command, paste it over here, and then hit enter. Once we hit enter, npm will install the package in the application that we are creating. And in the package.json file, we should see a reference to Bootstrap added. So here, as you can see, the Bootstrap library reference is now added and we are using version 4.5.2. So the next package that we would need to install is jQuery and popper.js. These are libraries that are required to use Bootstrap. So we need to install these additional two libraries. So to install jQuery, what we are going to do is we are going to type in npm install jQuery and then hit enter. Also, the next thing that we want to install is popper.js. So let's go ahead and install popper.js. So now we have installed the required libraries that we need to use Bootstrap for in our application. The next thing that we want to do is go ahead and reference these libraries in the angular.json file. So let's go ahead, open the angular.json file. Here in the angular.json file, here under the styles array, you'll see a reference to style.css. Here we will add the reference to Bootstrap min.css. We want to use the minified version of the Bootstrap CSS styling file. So we need to reference it like this, place a comma, and then add the additional references. In the scripts, we have to reference jQuery, Bootstrap, and popper.js. So here I'm going to add these references for jQuery, Popper, and Bootstrap. Keep in mind that these references have to be added in the same order. First, you will add jQuery because Bootstrap needs jQuery. So jQuery should be loaded before Bootstrap is loaded, and Popper.js needs to be loaded for the Bootstrap library to work. So these two libraries need to be loaded before your Bootstrap library. So follow the same order when you are referencing the libraries in the scripts. Now the next thing that we want to do, we have referenced and we have installed the library. Let's go ahead and test if we have Bootstrap installed. So what we can do is go to examples over here, and or we can just search for components. We don't need the entire, so I could go to components and I can search for any component, or I can use any component because we just want to test if Bootstrap is working. So let's go to navs or navbar. Let's go navbar actually. Let's try to see if this navbar appears if we copy paste this code onto the home page that we are creating. So home component. So if I go back to the application home works, I'll remove this, delete this, save the file. So I should not see anything over here. But now if I copy this, I don't see any Bootstrap being loaded, uh, which is obvious because I have just installed some packages. I would want to restart or rerun the Angular application. So now the application is loading. So once it is loaded, we should be able to see the new changes. So now as you see, the application is loaded. I'm going to close this tab. Here I have the navbar, and as you can see that the navbar is displaying the CSS as per Bootstrap because we have now loaded Bootstrap and application is using Bootstrap 4. So I copied the following navbar example from their website and I used it in the home page, and now the CSS styling and Bootstrap framework, the responsiveness is being applied accordingly. So all the functionality works as expected. So I'm going to get rid of this navbar because this was just used for testing purposes, and now I should not see anything over here. Now let's go ahead and start working on the navbar component. So if I go to the navbar.html, here I should start working on this. So I'll get rid of this code that was default created, and I have created the navbar component, the HTML. So I'm going to paste it over here. So here I have pasted the HTML code that we would need to display the navbar on the components. So we'll display the navbar on top of each component. As we have pasted the code over here, we will try to save this page now, and the document will reload, but we don't see the navbar appearing over here. For the navbar to appear over here, first thing that we want to do is go to the navbar.component.ts file and copy the selector for this navbar. We'll copy this selector, go to the app component.html file. Since we want to place the navbar on top of each routed component, I'm going to create a tag with this selector I just copied. So open and close ended tag. I'll save this, and once I save this, I should see the navbar appearing on each component now. If I try to expand this navbar, I should see the links, and if I try to expand the browser, I should see the navbar being expanded because we are using Bootstrap. the responsive behavior is adjusted accordingly. So when I try to go to different components like about us, terms, the component switches. Now all these components are switching. So I'm on the terms page, and if I go to the body and if I go to the app terms, here you will see that the document is switching and we are seeing the contents of each component. Because we have not applied some styling on the terms page, we don't see it being brought down in this component. We will fix that when we work on each component. So next thing that we want to do is, since we have now implemented this navbar component, we need to work on the functionality like the register and login. So once the user logs in our application, we need to make sure that these buttons are not displayed. So we need to have a state management system where we can manage the state of the logged in user. If the user is logged in, and if the user is logged in, then we don't show this button, and if is not logged in, then we show this button. So there are many things that we would need to implement in the application. So we will start working on it. So the first thing that now I'm going to work is go ahead and start working on the registration. So let's complete the design of each of these pages that we are working on. So let's quickly go ahead and update the register and login design as well. So I'll go to the register page now, or the register component. Here I am going to make sure that I put the HTML that I have already created. So here I have added the HTML code that is required for the login and register component. Now if you notice, when I switch from register to login, I will see the login form. And here one thing that is missing in the UI is the background image. We need to add a background image. So to add the background image for this UI that I have created for register component.html, I've also added some CSS to style it. So you will find the required code in these files. Accordingly, you can use it or update it. Once again, I will not be teaching you CSS or HTML. So I've created the component, so I'm just going to use it as it is. So now in the login component, as you can see that there is no background image, and even in the register component we don't have a background image. Don't worry about the functionality because we have not yet created or implemented the functionality. We will do that. But for now, let's just create all the UI elements that we need so we don't have to spend time later working on the UI. So now to set the background image, since we already have jQuery installed in our application which Bootstrap uses, I'm going to make use of some jQuery, but in order to use jQuery within my component to set the background image, I need to install the type version of jQuery and I need to reference it. So how do I use jQuery in my application? So the first thing that I will do is open my terminal window, and in my terminal window, I'm going to install the following jQuery package. So here I'm going to install npm install, and I'm going to install the package at types/jQuery. This will install the type version of jQuery in our application, and then we can use jQuery using the dollar symbol inside our component without having to do much changes, without having to import or do much changes. So the next thing that I want to do is, after I have installed this type version of jQuery, I need to go to the app dot the tsconfig file over here. So in the tsconfig.json file, you'll have the tsconfig.app.json. So if you cannot see it, you can see an expandable arrow over here. Click on it, and then you can go ahead and open this expandable arrow here. So whatever type version packages you install in your Angular application, you can reference that over here. So I've installed jQuery for now, so I'm going to install reference jQuery, jQuery, and now I should be able to use jQuery code inside my component. So if I go back to the register component.ts file, Here I'm going to create a new method called as set background image. I'll call it set background image. And all this method will do is set the background image when the component loads. As of now, when the component is loading, I don't see any background image. So here I'm going to create a variable. I'll call this as image URL, which is going to be of type string. And I will assign this the value of images / background, so bg register.jpg. And here inside the set background image, I will use jQuery to set the background image on the body of the DOM element. So here I've passed in the image URL that I want to use. So let's go ahead and create this images folder in the assets folder of our Angular application. So that's going to be the root. So I'll create a new folder, call this as images. And here I will place an image inside this images folder with the name bgregister.jpg. Now this can be any background image that you want to set. Place it over here with the following name or the name that you have used to set this background image. So once you have placed the image inside the folder, you can go ahead and call the set background image method inside the ngOnIt method. And when you save this, you should see the image loading. So image is not loading because I have to specify that the image is in the assets folder. Once I do that and save this page, I should see the image loading or the background image loading on the component itself. So this is how you will set the background image on the register component. So we will follow the similar pattern. We will go to the login component.ts. When here I will create a image URL, and then I will create another method which will be the set background image. I can just copy it from here and place it in here, and then call this method inside the login component in the ngOnIt. So doing this will set the background image on the login component itself as well. So here you can see the login component also now has the background image. So we have created the UI for login and for register. So in the next video tutorial, we will start working on the functionality for registering users. We also have to implement the drop down to select country. And since to show the countries, we have to call the backend API. We will be working in detail in the next video tutorial on the register component itself. So in this video tutorial, we learned how to install the packages that we need, like Bootstrap, jQuery, and Popper. I showed you how you can use jQuery within your Angular application to load certain components like the background image. I showed you how to create the components and how to load them uh, in the navigation bar. So in the next video tutorial, we will learn, as I told you, how to build the register feature in our application to register users. So that should be it for this video tutorial. If you have any questions, use the comment section, and the code will be found in the DevOps repo. Thank you once again and have a good day.